Hey, welcome to training one of our director recruiting boot camp. This is Kristen Warenga, National Executive Director out of Seattle, Washington. I'm so excited to dive in with you guys today. We're going to go into some deep details all about your personal recruiting. Take lots of notes, and there is a PDF handout to go with this, so you can use that for reflection and to get the most out of this bootcamp and this specific training number one. So to dive right in, I want to talk about why your personal recruiting as the leader is really important. Your recruiting fuels your team. In order to be a strong director team, you need recruiting. So usually what we say is that 1/3 of your team will be working, 1/3 of your team will be new and coming in, hopefully because you're recruiting, and 1/3 of your team will be on their way out. So you have a third, a third, a third. So what happens so this is a third that are coming in that are new, this is the third that's working, and this is the third that's on their way out. What happens if you don't have the third at the beginning that are coming in? If you're not fueling this with new recruits, what happens? Eventually, the folks that are working, life happens, they change their mind, they struggle to get bookings, and then they get discouraged and they stop working. Like, eventually, almost everyone, unless they want to work towards director in advance and stay with the company for a long time, almost everyone is going to move from this currently working to this eventually on their way out. It won't happen right away. For some people it will. For some people they'll stick around longer, like I said. And some people, very few will actually stick around for years and years, right? So you know that if eventually this third of people that are working eventually move to on their way out, soon everyone is on their way out and you have no one working except yourself. So to ensure that that doesn't happen, you have to continually bring in new consultants, and then those new consultants will transition from a new consultant to a productive working consultant. And then eventually at some point, those will probably move on into the third that are kind of phasing out. So it's super important that you are fueling that trajectory so that you constantly have people kind of moving through those thirds. That's normal, that's natural. And if you don't recruit, like I said, soon you'll be left with just yourself coming up with the director requirements. And that's certainly a little stressful. So it's really important that you strengthen your personal recruiting. And not only that, but when you strengthen your personal recruiting, you have the opportunity to help people, to help bless them, to help bless their life. And some of those might want to work towards director, and some of them might stick around for a long time, and that's really exciting. But in order to do that, you have to have those new consultants, that third, consistently coming in. All right, so that is one key reason why increasing your recruiting and having strong recruiting as the leader is very important. Now, let's move into talking about creating desire for the business and the benefits of that. So, recruiting kind of starts out with, obviously creating desire for the business. So, just like in your parties, you create desire for products, you also need to be creating desire for the business opportunity. I think there's a few ways to do this, but the key ways are to share your story. I like to call that kind of like the heart of the matter, and then sharing what can be made financially. What's kind of the financial impact of someone who wants to become a consultant, or is a consultant? What could they make potentially? I like to call that the head of the matter. So the heart of the matter in your parties is you sharing your story. This is very important, and don't gloss over this. So there's a few key things that I think are really important to include in your story when you are talking about this in your party. So I will usually do in my parties, I will do a post at the beginning that's like a get to know me post. There's no sales in it. There's no talking about the business in it. It is literally just a picture of me and my family, and then more about me, like my hobbies, like my kids, things like that. So it's literally, the goal is for them to get to know me from that post. That sets the stage and the foundation. And then later in the party, I will share my story post. So it is a post. It's a picture again of maybe me and my family, or maybe me on a trip, or maybe me with a sign that says like debt free, like a little selfie with a sign, whatever picture, you and your apron, that kind of thing. And then I have bullet points, the text to go with the photo. So when you write this text up, it's very important that you are touching on multiple things, because that will help ensure that you're reaching multiple demographics in your party. So instead of just saying something like, I started Pampered Chef because I love the products and I wanted to get products for free, or instead of just saying, I started because I wanted extra income and I wanted to use that to pay off bills, like that is super generic, really surface level. You need to go deep and be authentic and let people really in to see what you are doing with your extra income. So to go deeper, instead, you could say something like, I started with Pampered Chef to pay off our extra income because we had some bills we wanted to pay off. So we have this, kind of small little mountain of credit card debt, and I would just love to have that paid off. I am a stay-at-home mom, and I just wanted to help ensure that we had extra money coming in to be able to contribute to the family financially, so that that burden's not just on my husband. And when we pay off this credit card debt, we then want to use that extra money for family vacations. Because we have kind of been a little strapped, we haven't really been able to prioritize family vacations, and my kids are only young once, and I really want to take them on vacation and be able to splurge, and also to be able to give back to our family, and my husband too, for all that he's done for our family. And if I could do that with my Pampered Chef income, that would just be incredible. Obviously, I just made that up, right? So you're going to have to make your own story. But what I did, if you noticed, is that now anyone who has credit card debt is going to relate to me. Anyone who's a stay-at-home mom is going to relate to me. Anyone who wants to help their spouse and bring extra income is going to relate to me. Anyone that wants to pay for family vacations or vacation in general is now going to relate to me. All of those things, right? Anyone who wants to give back to their family is going to relate. So when you write your story, think about what are all the things that you can include to hit different people and different audiences in different walks of life in your party. That is very important, to have that relatability on all the different factors. So go deep, share a lot of things, because that's going to help ensure that people are relating to your story, and they might see themselves in one aspect of your story, and that's important. Okay, so that's kind of the heart of the matter in creating desire in your party. Now, let's talk about the head of the matter, which is money, like money talks, right? So a few things that I like to do in my parties are play a commission check game where people have the chance to guess the commission of a consultant. And then I do 2 posts for this. One to guess the commission of a consultant who is doing this part-time. Maybe they're doing 4 parties per week, bringing in 500 or 1,000 or 1,500 a month. And then the other post that I do for this is mine. And so they can see what the potential could be to earn when this is a career time job, and someone who has been doing it for a little bit longer and is a little more invested in their business. So they get to see the part-time consultant, maybe what it could look like for them if they started, and then long-term, maybe what they could aspire to become with their business. And so I give them the chance to guess the commission. And when some people see that we earn actual money and not just get paid in spatulas, that is really compelling for some folks. So I think it's really important to have the head and the heart both. And then you give people the opportunity to ask questions. So you have to create the desire first with the head and the heart, and then you post your Q&A post, which is ask me any question about the business for 10 bonus raffle tickets. Here are some examples. If you need some questions to steal, share your questions below. And then now you've created desire before you posted the Q&A post. I also reveal the answers to the checks on the Guess the Commission game before the Q&A post hits, so that the desire is strong and brewing when that Q&A post goes off. And the Q&A post I usually do the second to last day of my parties. So it's not the tail end of the party, so people have already trailed off. I'm posting it when there's still a lot of interaction and engagement going on. I think that's very important. So now you have created the desire. You've given people the opportunity to ask questions. Hopefully you have people asking questions on that Q&A post. If you have strong host coaching and people in your parties, you will have people asking questions. You could even, prompt your host to go in and ask a couple questions to get it rolling, to get some comments to boost the algorithm on the post. But then everyone who comments on that post, that gives you a chance to go through and ask them about the business in a private message. Okay, let's kind of transition into every 4 add one more. So we talked about why your personal recruiting as a leader is really important. We talked about how to create strong desire for the business in your parties. Let's dive into every 4 add one more. So you as the leader want to set the pace for your team, and every 4 add one more is a really amazing recruiting culture that you want to personally strive for and also implement with your team. And we're going to talk about team recruiting later on in our last 2 trainings of this boot camp. But most important is to make sure that you're striving for every 4 add one more yourself. So what I want you to think about here is what your actual recruiting ratio is. Are you meeting every 4 add one more? Is that something that you are already hitting? And so how do you know if you're reaching that? So I'm going to show you a really quick way that you can go in and actually see what your ratio is. So I'm going to share my screen here real quick. Okay, so go into Consultant Connection Summary. Hopefully most of you guys know how to get to this. So once you are here, you can go to Performance Tracker is a really good spot. There's a couple other ways you can do it too, but go to Year at a Glance, because this is going to give us the full picture for this year. You could also calculate your ratio for last year if you want to see the whole year and really get a true picture of 12 months. But how you get the ratio is the same. So you can apply the same method to looking at all of last year as well. So you would go to Go, so click Go. And it's going to show you right here your totals for the year so far. So this is the number of shows that that I've submitted. So for you, it will have your number, and then these are the number of people that I've recruited. So what this is going to show me, and I haven't actually done my own calculations, so this will be fun to see. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the show number 56. Okay, so take your show number here and divide it by 4. Okay. Divided by 4. So this number that comes up is what your recruiting number would be if you in fact were recruiting every 4 add one more. Every 4 parties you added 1 new consultant. So I took 56 and divided it by 4, and that's 14. So if I was on track with recruiting every 4 add one more, I would have 14 recruits for the year. In fact, I have 22 recruits for the year, so I'm almost double. Okay, so that's good because that means I'm recruiting about 1 person for every 3, 1 person for every kind of 2.5 parties. But do that ratio for yourself. All right, and in the handout, there's a chance for you to write out your ratio and reflect on that, to reflect where are you at currently in your recruiting, how many are you recruiting per show, essentially. And then you're here in this boot camp because you want to improve that number. So don't beat yourself up over that number. You have to know your base starting point and where you're at, because then you can grow and improve from that. And don't compare your numbers to mine. I'm a national. I've been in business over 5 years. I have very strong personal recruiting, and that is something that I focus on. So don't even compare to other people. Look at your numbers and then ask yourself how you can improve. But I wanted you to have that base point of where to start from so that you know, okay, where can I go from here? If you need help with any of this, you guys, if you need help calculating any of these things, like, do not hesitate to reach out to your director, because your director in Upline can help you. Okay, if you need help knowing how to do the calculation, or you get the number in the calculation, you're like, I can't really remember what she said or how this works or what this means, don't hesitate to reach out. Okay, so how can we in fact make sure that we are recruiting 1 person for every 4 parties that we do? Well, I'm going to show you a really cool picture that I made that breaks down the asks per party, because it comes down to creating the desire, which we just talked about, and then making sure that you're doing your asks. If you're doing your asks, then that's going to lead into the one-on-one conversation, and you can improve your skills in the one-on-one conversation, and we'll get to that in another training coming up. But you got to make sure you create the desire first, and you got to make sure that you're doing your asks, right? That's kind of the starting point. So I'm going to share my screen and kind of show this breakdown for you. So the goal is 6 asks at a minimum per party. Okay, that's on the left-hand side here in this blue rectangle. So the first, usually the first ask. So for sure, one of those is going to be your host. And you should be asking your host about the business 5 times. This is what we train our new consultants on. You as the leader should also be doing the exact same 5 asks, right? So one of those 6 is the host that you're talking with. And then you want to find at least 3 rock star guests that you can ask, at least 3. So who are rock stars? How do we find them? What are we looking for? These are people who literally are commenting like on every single post. They're really excited. They've commented on so much stuff. Maybe they're sharing their favorite recipes in the party. Maybe they're sharing about their favorite Pampered Chef products. Sometimes they'll even post pictures of their favorite Pampered Chef products. Those are your rock stars. You definitely want to reach out to them. And I reach out to them on usually the last day of my party, like when it's closing up to guests. And I will say, hey, you were such a rock star in Susie's Pampered Chef party. Thank you so much for your comments. They really helped make the party fun. And I could tell you were excited and engaged. Thank you. Have you ever thought about doing something like Pampered Chef before? Because I feel like you would be amazing at it. All right, so I private message those ones, and I make sure I do that with at least 3 people in the party, in each party. All right, and then the other 2 asks are curious Q&A guests. So I just mentioned that you want to build up the desire so you have people asking questions on your Q&A post. I message all of them on Friday as well, because Friday for me is the last day for orders. So you could do this on whatever day is best for you. I usually think towards the end of the party is good, but not before, not after the party, because you don't want it to, the interest to wane. So these folks I message and say, hey, you had a great question about the business and Susie's Pampered Chef party. Have you ever thought about doing something like Pampered Chef before? Again, it just opens the door to conversation, and sometimes they are interested and sometimes they aren't, but we never know unless we ask, right? You might also sometimes find people that will comment on your story post, or they will comment on the commission check game. And so those people you could also message if they seem kind of curious based off of a comment they've made. And you can message them and say, hey, like I saw, you commented on my story post, or I saw you comment on the Guess the Commission Check game, and seem kind of curious about Pampered Chef. Have you ever thought about doing something like Pampered Chef before? All right, so with that, you should have at least 6 people that you're asking about the business per party, if not more. Usually you can find more rock stars. Sometimes there's way more than just 2 people asking questions in the Q&A, or people that are curious, but this breaks it down for you at least 6. Now, here is where the magic happens. Look on the right-hand side, okay? Here is where I have broken down for you. If you're doing 4 parties per week, which is a highly encouraged recommendation for directors, at least 4 parties per week as a director, all right? So I base this off of 4 parties per week because that's a strong encouragement of at least that many per week for directors. So you have your party number 1 that's going on. You've asked 6 of those people, like we just talked about. You have party number 2. You do 6 asks in that one. Party 3 and party 4, 6 asks in each party. That equals 24 asks total for the week about the business. Let's say you have 12 back and forth conversations. Like 12 of these people respond back to you, or at least 12 respond back, and you're kind of having this back and forth dialogue. The standard number is usually 1 in 10 conversations you have about the business will sign up. Usually 1 in 10. Okay, that's kind of like the standard. So in this case, you're having 12 back and forths because usually about half the people will get back to you. So surely out of 12 back and forth conversations, you can have 1 of them sign up. That is how you can break down the numbers and get real nitty gritty to find out how can I ensure that I'm signing 1 person for every 4 parties. All right. Now, maybe in these 12 back and forth conversations, maybe it just doesn't really go well. And maybe you have 12 back and forth conversations and you don't even sign a single one of them. What does that tell you? That tells you that you need to strengthen the skill in the one-on-one conversation with them. And we're going to dive into that on another training. So lucky you, it's coming. But make sure that you do the asks and create the desire to begin with so that you are even putting yourself in that position to have that conversation with them. All right. So what's going to happen next is you're going to get a PDF handout that you can use to go along with this training. It's going to give you the chance to reflect on some of the things that you've learned. It will give you that chance to improve your skills. I'm going to show one more thing for you guys that I think is kind of cool that you might not even know exists out there. And this is something you can use as a tracker to track your asks, because I think it's really important that you track this and make sure that you know where you're landing on these 6 asks per party so that you can improve your ratios. So I'm going to share my screen. This is in Dash, okay? So this is a cool tracker in Dash. So let's say that you're in Dash, you just went there from Consultants Corner, and I'm going to show you how to get to this. So this is mine, but you go into Dash, go to Resource Library down here on the left-hand side. This is going to show you a ton of different resources. Click these 3 little lines right here so that it kind of shows it in like a list format. Scroll down a little bit, and you're going to see right here under Files, Monthly Every 4 Add One More Tracker. Click on that. Okay, you can download this and use it, and this is an awesome tracker to help you. So what this is this is based off of 4 parties a week for a whole month. Okay, so here, and you could use this with your team too, but this is great to start using yourself. So every one of these rectangular bold blocks is a week, and you have spots for your 4 hosts. And every time you ask your host 5 times about the business, you can check the box. Okay, so you make sure you're doing your host asks. And then you have a space for your rock star guests. I just told you you want at least 3 of them. Now, there's certainly not enough space to write 3 squished names in here, but try. Okay, try, or use the back or something like that. And then there's a spot for your curious guest names, your Q&A folks. I just mentioned at least 2, make sure you ask at least 2 of them and get those names written in there. And then there's spots to put your booked guest, your booked parties and their names. Now, down here, there's a spot for you to write your signed recruit name. So out of these 4 parties, if you're doing your Ask the Host, 3 rock stars, 2 curious guests, you'll sign 1. All right, so then you can put the signed name down here so you know you're on track of your goal for every 4 add one more. So that's a simple tracker you can use, and it's very helpful to be able to track your progress. All right, I hope you got all sorts of goodness out of this training today, and go utilize the handout to do some reflection, and feel free to share a screenshot of that handout with your director. Your director is here to help, and they would love to walk with you in this to help strengthen your recruiting. And so as you're doing these reflections, if you would like someone to partner with and kind of have accountability with, like, send screenshots to your director of what you're learning and have a dialogue with them about it, because that will also help strengthen your recruiting. All right, thanks for tuning in, guys. Bye.